In a vibrant, colorful neighborhood in Lagos, the air was always filled with children's laughter, vendors calling out their wares, and cars honking as they navigated the busy streets. Among the many kids who called this lively community home were two inseparable best friends, Samuel and Mary, both 11 years old. Samuel and Mary did everything together. They walked to school side by side, played soccer in the dusty open field near their homes, and shared stories under the big mango tree. After school, their bond was like that of siblings, built on years of trust and countless shared adventures. One sunny afternoon, Samuel couldn't wait to show Mary his newest treasure, a shiny new tablet, a birthday gift from his parents. The sleek device gleamed in the sunlight as Samuel proudly turned it on. Mary's eyes widened with excitement. "Wow, Samuel, your tablet is so cool," she exclaimed, leaning closer to get a better look. "Thanks, it's got all kinds of games and apps," Samuel said with a grin. "Come on, let's see what we can do with it." The pair quickly became engrossed in exploring the endless possibilities of Samuel's tablet, giggling as they discovered silly videos, challenging games, and fun apps. Little did they know this innocent excitement would soon lead them down an unexpected and troubling path. One breezy afternoon, Samuel and Mary were back in Samuel's room, the tablet resting on a soft pillow between them. They had already spent an hour playing games and laughing over funny videos, their voices filling the room with the warmth of their friendship. Just as they were about to try a new game, something unusual caught Mary's eye. "Samuel, what's that app?" she asked, pointing to an icon tucked in the corner of the screen. Samuel squinted. "I don't know, I've never opened it before." The app's icon was dull and nondescript, unlike the colorful games and streaming platforms they usually used. Curiosity bubbled between them as Samuel tapped the icon. The screen flickered for a moment, then loaded a list of videos with vague thumbnails and titles that didn't make much sense to them. "What kind of videos are these?" Mary whispered, leaning closer. Samuel hesitated but clicked on the first video. The screen lit up with moving images and sounds that were unlike anything they had seen before. At first, neither of them spoke. The content felt strange, unfamiliar, and unsettling. "I don't think I like this," Mary finally said, shifting uncomfortably on the bed. "Me neither," Samuel replied, but his finger hovered over the screen, unsure whether to close the app or click on another video. Something about the unfamiliarity drew them in, even though it made their stomachs churn with unease. Maybe just one more," Mary suggested hesitantly, her voice wavering. Samuel nodded silently and selected another video. This time, the images were even more confusing, the sounds sharper and louder. A knot formed in Samuel's chest, and he glanced at Mary. She looked away from the screen, biting her lip nervously. When the video ended, Mary quickly reached over and closed the app. "That's enough, we shouldn't watch that anymore." "Yeah," Samuel agreed softly, but the weight in the room was unmistakable. The videos had left them both with feelings they couldn't quite put into words: discomfort, guilt, and a strange gnawing curiosity. For the rest of the afternoon, their usual chatter was replaced by an unusual quiet. They played games and watched other videos, but their laughter felt forced. The app and its strange content lingered in their minds like a shadow. By the time Mary went home, Samuel sat alone with the tablet in his hands. He thought about what they had watched and how it had made him feel. He wanted to talk to someone about it but didn't know how to explain it. That night, as Mary lay in bed, the images replayed in her mind. She wanted to forget them, but they wouldn't go away. A part of her felt guilty, like they had done something wrong, even though she wasn't sure what. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was the beginning of a troubling secret that would challenge their friendship and teach them a lesson about the importance of speaking up. Days turned into weeks, and the app that Samuel and Mary had stumbled upon began to occupy more of their time. What started as a brief, unsettling curiosity grew into a habit. Whenever they were alone with the tablet, the strange videos called to them. They didn't understand why they kept watching. Perhaps it was the mystery or the fear of missing something, but they found themselves drawn to the app again and again. The changes in their behavior were subtle at first. Samoa and Mary no longer raced to the soccer field after school as they used to. The laughter that once rang out during their games under the mango tree was now replaced by hushed whispers and furtive glances. They spent hours indoors, huddled around the tablet, their faces illuminated by its glow. As the content of the videos became stranger and more confusing, the feelings of discomfort they once felt began to mix with a sense of guilt. They knew deep down that what they were doing wasn't right, but they couldn't bring themselves to stop. Instead of talking about it, they chose to keep it a secret, even from each other. "Do you think it's bad to watch this?" Mary asked one afternoon, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Samoa replied, avoiding her gaze. "But we don't have to tell anyone. It's not like we're hurting anybody." Their shared secret began to weigh heavily on them. They laughed less, their conversations grew shorter, and their once carefree friendship became strained. Even their parents noticed the change. "Samuel, why don't you go outside and play with your friends?" his mom asked one evening. "I'm tired," Samuel mumbled, keeping his eyes glued to the tablet. His mom frowned. It wasn't like Samuel to stay indoors, especially when his friends were calling him from outside. Similarly, Mary's parents began to worry about her sudden quietness. "Are you feeling okay, Mary?" her dad asked as they sat at the dinner table. "Yes, Dad," Mary replied quickly, poking at her food with her fork. "You've been so quiet lately. You barely play outside anymore." Her mom added, "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong," Mary said, forcing a smile, but her parents weren't convinced. They exchanged worried glances, unsure of how to reach their once bubbly daughter. The changes in Samoa and Mary didn't go unnoticed by their friends either. "Why don't you guys come play soccer anymore?" one of their classmates asked after school. "We're busy," Samoa replied curtly, rushing past. The more time they spent watching the videos, the more isolated they felt, not just from their friends and families, but from each other. Though they didn't talk about it, both Samoa and Mary were beginning to feel the weight of their secret. It was as if a wall had grown between them and the rest of the world, and neither of them knew how to break it down. As the days passed, the weight of the secret began to press harder on Samoa and Mary. The once simple joy of exploring the tablet had turned into a confusing maze of emotions they didn't understand. The videos they were watching, but something inside them told them they should feel uncomfortable. They tried to push those feelings aside, but it was impossible to ignore. The gnawing sense of guilt that seemed to follow them everywhere. "I don't get it, Samuel," Mary said one evening, sitting beside her on the bed. "Why do we keep watching this?" "I don't think we should," Mary stared at her hands, twisting them in her lap. "I don't know either, Samuel. I feel like we're not supposed to be doing this, but I can't stop, and it's making me feel so weird." It wasn't just guilt that plagued them, it was confusion. They didn't understand what they were seeing, but the urge to watch more was overpowering. It wasn't long before they began to mimic the behavior in the videos, even though they didn't fully grasp the consequences. One afternoon, after watching a particular strange video, Samoa turned to Mary with a nervous laugh. "Let's try that thing they did in the video. Maybe it'll be fun." Mary hesitated but nodded. "Okay, but I don't know what I'm doing." They attempted to copy the strange actions they had seen, but it didn't feel fun. It didn't feel right either. Instead of laughter, they felt a heavy silence between them as they tried to follow along. The more they mimicked the videos, the more upset they became. It wasn't the same as the innocent games they used to play. The videos had taken something from them, their carefree spirit, their sense of fun, and their confidence. The weight of the guilt pressed down, and they both started to feel scared of what they were doing, scared of getting caught and scared of how they felt afterward. One evening, as they sat in Samuel's room, the discomfort reached its peak. Samuel wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, his voice shaking. I don't want to do this anymore, Mary. But I don't know how to stop. Mary was equally upset, but the words seemed to stick in her throat. I don't either, Samuel. I feel like if we tell someone, they'll be angry or worse, maybe they won't understand. The fear of talking to adults, of explaining what they had seen, felt like a chasm between them and their parents. They were scared of being judged, of the disappointment they might cause, and the overwhelming shame that came with the secret. They tried to forget about the videos, but the images would creep back into their minds at night when they were alone, when the silence of the dark room seemed to make everything feel worse. The feeling of guilt was all-consuming, and it kept them both up late, tossing and turning. They couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't shake the emotional burden that had come from keeping the secret. It was clear that the deeper they got into this secret world, the harder it became to communicate with their parents. They couldn't bring themselves to share the truth, not yet. The thought of telling an adult filled them with dread. Would they understand or would they be angry? But the emotional weight of the secret was becoming too much to carry, and each passing day felt like a reminder that they couldn't go on like this forever. The fear, guilt, and confusion continued to grow, making them realize they needed help, but they didn't know how to ask. One afternoon, after a few days of trying to ignore the strange app, Mary finally broke the silence between her and Samuel. She sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes downcast, the weight of their shared secret heavy in the air. Samuel, she began hesitantly, I think we should try again. Samuel looked up from the tablet, his heart racing. The thought of returning to the app, to the videos that had caused so much discomfort, made him uneasy. He shook his head slightly, his stomach churning. No, Mary, he said quietly. I don't think we should. I don't want to do this anymore. It doesn't feel right. Mary's face fell. But we've already watched them. Maybe this time will be different. We won't mimic them, I promise. She gave him a pleading look, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and desperation. Just one more time. I think we'll feel better if we know what's going on. I just want to understand. Samuel hesitated, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. He knew deep down that returning to the app wasn't the right thing to do, but the pull to understand more, whatever that meant, was strong. He didn't want to disappoint Mary, especially since their friendship had already started to feel distant. Okay, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. But just this once, we'll stop after this. With a deep breath, Samuel unlocked the tablet and opened the app. The screen lit up in front of them, and they both stared at it in silence. The familiar sense of unease crept back, the strange, unsettling thumbnails and titles appeared just as they had before. They hesitated, both of them staring at the screen as if they could will the fear away. Just as Mary moved to click on a video, the door to Samuel's room opened with a soft knock. Samuel's mother's voice called out from the hallway. Mary froze, and Samuel's heart skipped a beat. Yeah, Mom, Samuel replied quickly, trying to hide his nervousness. Samuel's mom stepped inside, her warm smile fading as she noticed the tense atmosphere in the room. She looked between her son and Mary, sensing something was off. What's going on in here? She asked gently, her eyes narrowing with concern. Both kids looked down at the tablet as if it could hide their feelings. The app was still open, the unsettling images frozen on the screen. Samuel's mother's gaze shifted to the tablet and then back to her son. She could tell something was wrong. Samuel, Mary, why aren't you outside playing? You've both been quiet lately. What's going on? She asked, her voice soft but filled with concern. Samuel's stomach twisted. He felt trapped, caught between the guilt of what they had been doing and the fear of disappointing his mom. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Mary looked at Samuel, then back at his mom, her voice barely rising above a whisper. We were just looking at something on the tablet, but it's nothing. It's just videos. Samuel's mom sat down beside them, her voice gentle but firm. Videos? What kind of videos? Mary looked at Samuel, her eyes wide with fear, but Samuel knew it was time to tell the truth. His throat tightened, but he finally found the courage to speak. We found something on the tablet. It made us feel uncomfortable, but we kept watching. He paused, his voice shaking. We don't know why we kept watching, but it felt wrong. His mom's expression softened, but she remained calm. It's okay, Samuel. Thank you for telling me. What you found wasn't meant for children. It's important that you talk to me if you ever see something that makes you uncomfortable. Samuel and Mary looked at each other, the weight of their secret slowly lifting. For the first time in a long while, they felt a sense of relief. Thank you for trusting me, Samuel's mom said. Now let's talk about how to stay safe online, okay? As Samuel's mom sat down beside them, the room felt strangely calm. The weight of the secret that had burdened Samuel and Mary for weeks seemed to slowly lift, though the fear and confusion still lingered. Samuel and Mary sat quietly, listening as his mom began to speak. Her tone was soothing but firm. Samuel, Mary, what you found on the tablet is not meant for children, and it's important that you understand why it made you both feel uncomfortable, Samuel's mom said gently, her eyes softening. She looked at both children, seeing the mixture of relief and guilt in their eyes. It's okay to feel confused, and it's okay to not know what to do in situations like this. What matters is that you talk about it. Mary looked down at her hands, the guilt still heavy in her chest. But we didn't tell anyone. We were scared of what you'd think. That's normal, Mary, Samuel's mom replied, her voice warm. You both kept this secret because you didn't understand what you were seeing, and that's okay. But the most important thing is that you know you can always come to me or any trusted adult if something online makes you feel uncomfortable, confused, or scared. Samuel nodded, his own guilt still weighing on him. We are sorry, Mom. We should have told you earlier. I understand, Samuel, she said, giving him a gentle hug. What matters now is that you've told me, and we can talk about how to stay safe online. She took a deep breath, then turned to address both of them. The internet is full of great things, games, videos, educational tools, but it's also full of things that aren't meant for kids. That's why it's so important to know how to stay safe. The videos you watched, they weren't just confusing. They were inappropriate, and you shouldn't have seen them. She paused for a moment, making sure they understood the seriousness of the conversation. There are rules we follow when we use the internet, like only visiting trusted sites, never sharing personal information, and always asking an adult if something doesn't feel right. You both did the right thing by coming to me. Now, next time, I want you to come to me the moment you feel something isn't right, okay? Both children nodded, though the conversation felt heavy. They both felt a sense of relief. They hadn't realized they needed it. I'm glad you both trusted me enough to share this, Samuel's mom continued. But you don't have to go through these things alone. Communication is key. If you don't understand something online or if something upsets you, always talk to someone who can help. Your safety is my